This is Boss Hogg Radio, home of Born to Ride Radio.
Born to Ride is sponsored in part by Rubenstein Law, 1-800-FL-LEGAL, representing riders since 1988. Offices throughout Florida, 1-800-FL-LEGAL.
Everyone was right, I was born to ride.
Born to Ride is a multimedia marketing and promotional machine with TV, magazines, streaming radio, and internet advertising opportunities. There are tens of thousands of motorcycles. We reach the people who ride them. Born to Ride. Find out more at borntoride.com.
This is Boss Hogg Radio, home of Born to Ride Radio. You can join the motorcycle enthusiast conversation by calling 863-225-2000.
And welcome to another edition of Born to Ride Radio on the Boss Hogg Radio Network. Yes, folks, it is the 16th of December. I mean, it is just around the corner, folks. Ho, ho, ho.
The rest of the year.
In fact, let's talk about this. Are we going to do it next Thursday? That's the 23rd. I mean, but are we going to do a little early Christmas, exit there?
Well, I prepped Ron and told him December 23rd is his favorite mother-in-law's birthday, and we might have to reschedule something.
But it's so close to Christmas, we just celebrated at Christmas.
She will lump you on the head.
That's breaking it.
The cord.
Daniel, you need to shut off the volume on the Facebook Live because I can hear that in the background, so that
I
learned it.
I can't say I was good. I can't say I was good at it when I took those classes, but when it comes into play and something you're passionate about, and again, it goes back to the fabrication, and that's even where the stainless steel, which is historically more troublesome to work with than regular steel. I have such a background in that, so it's almost a comfort zone for me with a lot of stainless food, pharmaceutical grade, close tolerance work in my past is kind of the foundation of my welding background.
And what about then you do the polishing part, right? You polish that to make it look like chrome. Because it looks like glass. It almost looks like a mirror.
Yeah, so the red bike is completely polished out, all the welds and everything, and it got mistaken for chrome so often that on the gold bike, I decided to leave all the weld color. So when you weld polished stainless, if your heat is right and your hand speed, all the factors of welding and creating a good weld, it leaves a really nice, pretty rainbow color, and you get those stacked diamonds look, and it's really appealing. So I left that on there to kind of let people know it's not chrome, at least ones that understand metal. But yeah, the polishing is done. I do it all myself on the frames. And that part of the process is done after everything is bent and coped and fit up in the fixture. It all comes out, then gets fully polished, all put back in the fixture, and then fully welded out. So it's a pretty entailing process from beginning to end, and all those steps, from tubing on the floor to cutting it, to bending it, to coping it, to fitting it up, to polishing it, and then final weld out. It's and making all the plates too, axle plates and all those things. There's a lot more to a frame than it looks when it's sitting there.
Yeah, and you're building frames. So do you actually build them for other builders now as well, or people saying, Brian, I need one of your frames?
Yeah, that's probably parts wise. I do anything one off. I custom work is kind of my thing, but frames are my biggest seller, and it's primarily for other builders or guys that are home builders. They want to do something cool, and I build them to their specifications. They're all built to order. I recently just I always enjoy seeing the finished product of bikes of one of my frames, and there's I think you're familiar with them. He was down last year for the show. Fish from Alleyway Customs.
Oh yeah,
up in Jacksonville, Florida. So they just finished a twin cam. It was my first twin cam frame that I ever built, hardtail, and they just debuted it here recently at a show, and it came out killer. And so I always enjoy that part of getting pictures or seeing people that send what started with my frame and what they did with it. I've this year I've had a pretty good run of frames.
So I think I saw it. You made a post of that. It's like a black bike with gold involved in it, and that twin cam. And that was at Wheels of Steel. That was just last weekend. Another great event that happened here in Florida. How was that event?
It was a nice event. I tell you, they put an awful lot into to that show. It was the third year they've had it. The first year they have a legacy award as kind of best of show, and it's a builder award. So I built the trophy the first year. Another person, Kyle Ray Rice. You were referring to young builders, amazing young talent.
Yeah, he is.
I picked his bike. He actually picked Fish the second year's bike, and then Fish just built the trophy this year. But anyway, they had an amazing lineup of bikes from all over the country. A lot of builders I'm familiar with. It was a great venue, and being right here in my backyard was nice too.
That's awesome. And Chris Callan was there from Cycle Source with his wife, and it's just great to see a lot of action. But there was a lot of talent in that building, and that's what's so cool about it. But Brian, a guy like Fish everybody's knowing him all across the world now, country, and a great guy. But man, he's trusting you for his frame. How does that make you feel when people are saying, I've got to have a Metalworks frame now, Brian's frames, he's killing it? How does it make you feel?
It's amazing. Every step of this journey has been pretty wild to me. And for guys like Fish and some of these other guys that are reaching out for my work is I don't think it's all sunk in. It's certainly humbling. I have an awful lot of respect for Fish's talent, and what he did with that frame was just absolutely amazing. So I'm grateful. It's what's allowed me to get up and do this every day. It's my own business now, and it has been, and bikes and the people that entrust in my work is what makes that happen. So I couldn't be more thankful, and to work with people like I have, Fish and some of these other guys that I could go talk about it. It's just it's awesome. It really is.
Brian, did you know Brad Rule at one point? He was a frame fabricator as well. He's not offhand. I'm not familiar.
He had the wrench.
Yeah, the wrench in Tampa. We lost him several years ago. But what amazes me is his legacy still rolls on, if you will. People will go to a bike show and they'll say, "That's a Brad Rule frame right there." They can pick it out and point it out, and it's kind of amazes me. And so I think you're running with that torch now. I'm sure people can recognize and pick out your frames, after a bike's already been customized. I'm like, how do you know that was a Brad Rule frame? How could you tell? But I guess...
Yeah. I actually, now that you say the wrench, I remember that shop in the Tampa area years ago.
Yes.
But I never had the opportunity to meet him.
Yeah, he was an innovative guy too, and he brought a lot of life to the business industry, and he jumped on board when they were making all those stretch big choppers in the 90s, and he just did his thing with Johnny from Strip Club Choppers, and
Johnny Lang.
They were all over. But I was checking out some photos, and I know we've interviewed you before, but there's these pictures of you at these chic guys. Is that Dubai or is it in Egypt? I mean, these are dudes like have $1 million watches on their hands and the big sheiks, and they're big time guys. But you're there with your choppers, and they look like they were looking like you were Hulk Hogan or somebody, like Elvis. I mean, tell us about that. Where was that at?
That was a trip. So I again, back in 2018, the year that I debuted the Red Bike, it got invited to a lot of events and a lot of things, and I ended up with it in Sturgis, and it won the Swiss Moto pick to go over to Zurich, Switzerland, and it won Best of Show there. And when it won Best of Show in Zurich, that sent you to Abu Dhabi. And that's where that picture was taken. So 1 month after we finished Switzerland, we jumped on a plane and were sent to Abu Dhabi and flew into Dubai. And the show was amazing. And that picture is actually before the show opened. And it's the group of, if I remember, I believe there's the guy with his hand out, and there's a guy with glass. I think he's the older gentleman. Kind of in the picture is he's like the third highest sheik in Abu Dhabi, and so when he came in, they threw flowers out, and that was him, his entourage, and his personal security. That they got a tour of the whole event before anybody was allowed inside, and then and so they had stopped, and they were the most welcoming, from the time I got there, and the promoters of the event and the people involved. I was the only American there in the motorcycle part, and it was unbelievable. It was, and it couldn't have been nicer. And they took so much interest in my bike, and they were really, they were genuinely, wanted to know things about it, and so that was a real special moment. That's one of the most important pictures that I think I'll ever have.
It's amazing, but it all comes down to, it's sort of like rock and roll. I mean, it's appreciated everywhere in the world, but when you make a motorcycle go to Zurich or Sturgis, and now you're in Zurich, Switzerland, and people are just digging it even more, and they're appreciating your fabrication, your vision, your design, and then, you go to Dubai, or, and it's universal. It's what motorcycling does for us all. And being a builder, and I got to ask you, I mean, how does it make you feel again when you built it in your garage, your vision, and started out probably with a pencil and some ideas, and then now it's taken on this own monster to help out the industry of chopper building and what people can do in their own backyard or in their own shop, or that's pretty powerful. I think something that you've really added to our industry, man, and I got to give you total props for that. But how does it make you feel? I mean,
I just did a post, and it was kind of in reference to people I sell T-shirts from time to time, and for my shop, and when people reach out to buy them lately, they kind of give you little messages of what they appreciate and that they follow you. And these are people who've never met me, and they support me and have genuine interest, and you get choked up about it. I never would have thought I'd do something that impacted other people, or these younger guys, they send me messages of, not even questions or anything else, just that I've inspired them and that to push them to build in their garage or to take the next step or just tackle it, just to do it, that you can do it. That literally you can build something in your garage and it take you around the world. I'm grateful for what happened. I had the opportunity to build that bike, and I had a support system at the time, and I put everything into it, and it paid off more than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah, so are you in the process of a new build or new concept, a new motorcycle that's going to be on that frame rolling out anytime soon?
Well, the problem is you get busy and you get a lot of customer stuff and you don't have time for your own stuff. But I have several customer bikes going that are certainly pretty cool.
Like under the umbrella.
I'll be hopefully debuting those all in the early part of next year. And then I have a customer, very good customer of mine, who he's into all styles of bikes and he appreciates them. Another guy I'm really grateful for, and we have plans into next year to doing a bike for him that's will probably be considered my third big bike, super high end. At the end of next year, it's been put off, but I'm scheduled. I'm one of three builders in the USA that's scheduled to go over to Germany and represent the USA in the World Championships. It was supposed to be 2020, and now it's 2022. And with the state of everything, without saying, we're not certain it'll go, but it's a plan. So I'd like to maybe have it to compete over there as well.
We need a round of applause for that, Fester.
Let's hear it, bro. Don't you have it on the thing?
Not you.
Mash the button.
Mash the button.
Mash the applause button. He's trying to find it. USA. Good job. But it works. Brian, you said it.
Try to bring it home.
Yeah, man. You were just saying that in training for that, or getting ready for that. But speaking about training, I mean, your background goes back to a lot of dedication to sport and fitness, but also kicking ass because you're a badass MMA fighter and boxing. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Shut the front door.
Some people don't know. They don't know. Tell us about it. And you're out in Vegas. Where'd you do that at? Out west?
I started boxing in a police athletic league at 14 years old, and I was really passionate about boxing. Got into it, and it, pretty much my whole life it was kind of an off and on thing. And then I was around a pretty growing community and successful community, and guys that went on to be pretty big deal in MMA while in Vegas and doing work I did out there. And ended up actually of all places, got into MMA later in life in Cincinnati. I moved to Cincinnati, ended up working for an engineering firm up there for about 4 years, and fell into a group of unbelievable people that, are friends to this day and some I call family. Roger Bowling, Dan Strauss, TJ Ball, they all guys that, Chris Curtis, the guys that you're watching on UFC now have all been in the UFC. Dan Strauss is 2-time world champion. These guys that all, were starting and were fighting in a small gym, and were big, dedicated guys, and went to the top, and better people to boot. So I kind of fell into an opportunity I couldn't pass up to, being passionate about combat sports and boxing, and to learn from those guys and train a little bit, and so got into the MMA side of it after boxing a little bit, and had a couple big fights here and there. One that was probably out of my league. We ended up doing all right, but it was a huge experience. I always say I don't know if there's anything like walking out to an arena full of people screaming and yelling for you to be locked in a cage and fight another man. It's a pretty surreal thing when you're actually thrown it.
You know what? Brian?
Sounds a little messed up, really.
No, man, but
it's a heck of an experience, and I my whole life has been kind of things of maybe they consider it crazy or wild, but just pushing yourself and those experiences, and good and bad. I've fallen on my face plenty. I think a lot of people see that I built a bike in 2018 and the success and what I've done in 3 years, and they don't see, like I said, the 18 years before that of not being able to, and failing and trying and it not working, and nobody knowing who I was. There's anything takes work, and anything takes dedication, and that was a big part of it all for me too. It just certainly wasn't an overnight thing. Like, it just all happened perfect.
Well, Brian, that takes
a lot of work.
That takes a lot of determination, a lot of training. So when it all comes back, I think, in circle to what you do and what we all do in life, where we were and where we are. So you walk into your shop, you grab your welding torch, or you put that mask, that hood on, that welding hood, that mask, and you put that leather thing on so that you don't get spark. I've seen you. You look even bigger with that stuff on, and you got that, you're sweating and all that. But you put the mask on. What do you feel like when you're about to go in that cage? You're going into the cage in the shop, and you're going to take on that project. I mean, what are you thinking then? I mean, it's the same thing. You're in the cage. You're taking on this.
The battle.
Yeah, this battle, or just this project. How do you attack that?
Yeah, and I guess I can probably equate that more to the really challenging projects and the things that you're kind of that intimidate you when you go into it. Some of the jobs I do, or you take the job and you figure out how you do it after the fact, and so I always try to have the mindset when I walk in the door and turn the lights on that, I always, to this day, I take a minute and I look around and remind myself how important it is and how special it is that I get to do that and go to my own place and work. And I think my whole mindset is to do the best I can every day. Quality is what I bank on and what I do. Cleanliness and good fabrication and putting out parts that I'm proud of. And no matter who it's for, if my own stuff is no different than any customer or anybody that comes in, no matter how big or small it is, if a guy comes in from down the way from me who has a part and, with his little compressor shop down the road and he needs some pieces made for it and welded up, well, I put just as much into it as I do for the guy that comes and spends, all kinds of money on big fancy stuff. So it's everything, I think, revolves around the mindset of just doing my best every day. When I go to turn the lights off and it's over for the day, that I'm content with what I did, and I feel good about myself.
Yeah, man, I'm looking at a photo of you. It's kind of cool, black and white. You got the hood on, but it's up, and you're kind of just like looking, got your glasses on. I noticed you got some really cool tattoos. You got ink. Do your tattoos tell any special story about you, or what are your tattoos about?
I haven't been tattooed in quite a long time. And the last time I was tattooed were some cover-ups 2-3 years ago. I had some significant things covered up that were from a different time, different outlook, different, if you will. And it was pretty special because it was a good friend of mine who covered him up, and he took his own life shortly after, not to be sad and negative, but so that was the last time I've ever been tattooed, and a lot of them do speak. They tell a story, I think, as most people's do. Especially that got them in a way, kind of with demographically our background, the biker scene, and we the more traditional, old school way of what tattoos are and about. They do tend to tell a story. I know where everyone came from. I remember where I was at, what I was thinking, what I did, where my head was at the time, and some of them are pretty, pretty profound. So, people say, do you ever regret them? Or no, I don't. And I'm covered in them, so going through what they all are, could take a while. But
but I mean, overall, is it something that relate to you, or just beautiful images or special images?
I have things that definitely are indicative of my time in Las Vegas. Cards and dice, and I got some naked ladies and brass knuckles and skulls and all the, all kind of the standard operating procedure stuff that everybody.
That's like Debbie. Debbie has
like me, the brass knuckles, all that good stuff,
Naked ladies.
Yeah.
But
I love Mom.
Bunch of skulls.
Yeah.
There's a rose too, so it's not it's not all.
There you go. It's all balanced. Brian's balanced.
I got to interview Indian Larry, and I asked him about his tattoos, and he told me what every one of them meant. And he goes, "I'm in no clubs, man, except for one." And he held up his arm, and there was the Polar Bear Club. The guys who jump in the ice water out in New Jersey, and it was just a great man. And has Indian Larry inspired you as well?
Oh yeah, I actually have an Indian Larry frame in my shop right now that is going to ultimately become a full build. So yeah, his stuff and the guys doing that. I think I was actually talking to another builder at the show this past weekend that that generation, those guys built what we do today. So I think we all are at an age or fall into remember the Jesse James and Indian Larry and the
Billy Lane
when that popped popped on the scene, and nobody had, you hadn't seen that kind of stuff really, and like you said, he was a great guy, and the coolness factor that came with that was just you were drawn into it, So, yeah, all those guys are a big influence of what comes out of my shop. That clean, simple, old school. It's how can you not like it?
Yeah, and we're proud that you're one of the guys now filling those shoes. There were other people now can look up to some of your inspiration as well. What'd you have, Deb?
What about Mondo when he called that time? He said we originally created
from Denver's Choppers.
Yeah, from Denver's Choppers. We originally created this whole air, and he said it was so cool to see everybody kind of reliving it and also rebuilding it, bringing it all back to life. So. The originators out there are psyched about this whole
and Mondo,
rebirth.
Yes.
And Mondo
Perfect
and
word.
Paco both are going to give us some really cool some prizes to give away to some of the builders. It's not going to be a trophy show, but we want to give out some cool stuff from some cool people, and we're working on some other stuff now as we speak. And it's going to be a great time at Choppertown, and Brian, we're looking forward to having you there. If you have any of those new builds that other guys have with your stuff and you want to bring them under your umbrella, we would love to have them to promote them. Even prior to it, we can get some pictures and highlight them coming in, and maybe we can get Eric to come out to your shop and do some updates with you, or anything you need, man. We're here for you, and we just appreciate you being part of Choppertown. Coming up at Thunder by the Bay in February. Mm-hmm. And, man, I can't thank you enough for calling in today. Any last words, to the listeners, to the viewers, because we use this on the TV show as well?
Just thank you. Thank you to you guys. And, Brian, you've always supported me. And I always enjoy your guys' events. And to anybody listening that has bought shirts or has any interest in what I do at all, I can't express how grateful I am.
How do they get them? Where do they go?
What's that?
Your shirts. Is your website, Facebook, Instagram?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on Facebook. My name, Brian Butera, or I also have Butera's Metalworks, a business page. Instagram's a really big channel of, I'm always checking that in messages. Butera's Metalworks _ between each one, and works is WERX. But yeah, reach out to me. My shop number is out there everywhere too. You can call anyway. And for parts or shirts or anything, or even questions, like, when I go to these shows and, you talk to these guys that are aspiring builders or coming up and ask questions, I always say, reach out to me. Don't ever be afraid to ask questions, or I'm always willing to help with anything I can and things I do know. So, but I'm excited to come down there. I know it's a great event. There's going to be some great people involved. A lot of friends will be there. It's going to be a great time. So I hope everybody comes out, and I look forward to seeing everybody and meeting everybody new.
Oh, man, thank you, Brian. It's Metalworks, Brian Butera. And if you need more information, you can always contact Born to Ride. We'll get you in touch with him. And I can't thank you enough. Let's touch base again before Choppertown comes. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
right,
Feel
thanks,
free
Brian.
to call me anytime, guys. Have a great night.
Yeah,
You
man.
too.
What
Have
an
a good night.
inspiration. What an inspiration,
Appreciate it, Brian.
I
Thanks.
mean, gosh, you got a guy like him right here in our own backyard.
our own backyard,
but internationally known. Zurich, Switzerland. He blew them all away.
Yeah,
Now he's going back to Germany.
And I think that's the thing that's amazing is you don't have to be in these high profile cities, to get the recognition, to be, just bring your passion and, make it happen.
Yeah. And when you talk about bring your passion and making it happen, the guy we have on the phone right now is the guru of health insurance. And it's actually health
Medicare.
insurance, but health insurance
Senior
65.
insurance. Senior. Yeah.
This guy, his passion runs the same as Brian's in his
But
own
his
way.
passion is helping people.
Helping people. He's a biker. His wife she rides as well. And it's a family, but it's someone you could really trust. And that's why we want to talk to him like every week about, about insurance and what we have to do in life as we get older, and let alone Medicare and all that other stuff, where we all have to deal with that sooner or later. Is James on the line?
Well, even with the open enrollment over and done, there's still things that I found out last week that doesn't mean that you can't, fix things. You can't undo what maybe you did. Mm-hmm. And James, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And you're absolutely right. If somebody is second guessing what they did or just wants to make sure they did the right thing, all they have to do is just give me a call, and within less than 20 minutes, I can come up with either a yay or a nay. And if it is a critical mistake, there's absolutely ways of rectifying that. And a lot of people this week have called, and I don't know, they just had called a lot of the TV ads and started second guessing everything. And we're getting a lot of information in the mail that they didn't really understand. So I was able to help a number of different people just to essentially educate them on what they need to look for. And I'm very easy to work with. My only agenda is just to make people happy. And this is the time of year to, if you are on Medicare, maybe early due to disability, or you're a veteran, or you're retired, this is absolutely the time to double check everything. And there's other things too that I do. I do a lot of life insurance business. I mean, I'm impartial to particular companies because I do represent them all. So I'm a certified senior advisor, so I don't really have a horse in the race. So basically my job is to figure out what's in the client's best interests, regardless of commission, because those are the the oaths that we take as a certified senior advisor.
Well, and James, I wanted to point out that's something very particular. You don't have a horse in the game. You're not sitting in a boiler room with a bunch of other people in a call center and just trying to get people to drive them to a certain product. In other words, you're one of 3,000 people plus or so, more or less, in this country that are certified in this specialty that you can help these people with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's about 3,400 that have actually gone through all the training and the educational parameters that one has to do. And so I feel very confident that I can help just about everybody that calls. But we're talking about motorcycles, and interestingly enough, I was talking around earlier about this Choppertown event, and it sounds exciting. I'm interested in it, and I got a phone call after that from someone who loves motorcycles like I do, and he reminded me something about life insurance. Okay, that's why I got on this life insurance kick all of a sudden tonight. And a lot of people don't realize is that there are life insurance policies out there that you can dump money into or make monthly payments into, and they will earn a substantial interest, a substantial return. There are different indexes that you can invest this money in. And so if the stock market does good, you do great. And the nice thing about these policies is if the stock market does bad, it doesn't make any difference. You're always guaranteed a minimum amount, so you're never going to lose anything. But when I was talking to a friend of mine, he was a client, we always end up becoming friends, and he said, wow, he goes, this policy, he goes, I remember you telling me this years ago, and you're right, it really does work that way. It's funny how you explain a lot of things to people, and you think they're believing you, and in the back of their mind, maybe they're not. In this situation, maybe, he wasn't believing me. But the way this policy works, and the way a lot of them work, if you know the right ones to purchase, is if you have money in the plan, you can borrow money out of that plan. And so in his circumstance, he bought another motorcycle. So he had a little over $10,000 in the plan. He took out $10,000 and, to buy this motorcycle. But on this particular type of policy, when he took the $10,000 out of the plan still pays an interest rate as though that money is still there. So even though the money's out and he bought a motorcycle with it, the plan is still paying a return based on what he took out. Now, he can pay the money back, which he's planning on doing. He's paying a nominal interest rate for borrowing it. But when he pays the money back to the plan, who's he paying it back to?
Himself,
He's
right?
not paying it himself.
Yeah,
He's not paying it back
I got
to the
one
Harley
right.
dealership.
Where's my applause?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. You see what I mean?
Here we go.
There we go. Oh, hold on.
Paying it back
Yay! Debbie got it right.
There you go.
I have to tell you, I got it right because I did the similar thing many years ago. I borrowed money on my 401k plan to buy my motorcycle, and I paid myself back with interest. Woo! Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. But what's neat about this is, see, when you took the money out of the 401k plan, you weren't making any interest on what you took out.
No, I bought a bike.
Right. No, I know. But when you take the money out of these certain insurance policies, you still make interest on that money that you took out to buy the motorcycle, even though it's not there.
Is that a whole life insurance policy or a...
No.
It's cash value?
No.
Oh.
No, it isn't.
So I better call you.
Quit teasing us here, James.
This is why you call James Irwin and find out what kind of life insurance policy you should have.
He's not going to tell us. Okay, you got to call. Okay.
See, we have knowledge on this show from Brian Butera and his geometry, to build a frame to this guy's geometry too, because James has it, right, Deb?
Yeah, he's got it.
Get it out of him. What were you asking him?
He's got the financial savvy there.
What was that?
But that is a good point. Is you got to take a look at when you age into these products that you're available. Look at them from an investment standpoint, not just as a death benefit or something of that effect.
Right.
And then also, you have to. I know there's like a big who's on first type thing. When you start turning 60, 62, 65, who's on first? Medicare, Social Security, income. Do you do a life policy to cover your difference? It's a puzzle, but you're good at putting those puzzles together.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's important information to know, and it's easy to make mistakes, and people do it every day. And it's understandable why they do, because the government makes it very, very complicated. I mean, look at the tax code.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, how many, you could have 3 different CPAs do somebody's tax return, come up with 3 different answers. It's the same way with Medicare. If you're not really dealing with someone who knows what they're talking about, you could really be getting screwed.
Oh yeah,
and you don't even know, and you won't even know it because you don't know that there's something else out there. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So that's why everybody. It kind of became one of my slogans. I wish I knew back then what I knew now.
Yeah,
because that's what a lot of people say. That's what a lot of people tell me all the time. So that's why I've always kind of had that statement on some of the marketing material and the websites and things like that I've had over the years.
It's not inmates
James,
that say that either.
Whenever we get you on the show, it just flies by. We're coming to the end of another show.
Okay,
but
sure.
you
No
just
problem.
have to promise us that you will return next week again, because people are digging this stuff and they're learning from you. And we thank you so much for being a part of
Sure,
Born to
I
Ride.
hope
But
so.
your knowledge is king, man.
And I could tell you, our
yeah.
listeners tonight, the one thing they took away from this conversation was save for your own plan with James, and you could buy yourself a new motorcycle.
Yes.
We need to hammer that.
Absolutely.
Hammer that in.
Thanks, James. Okay.
All right. Have
right,
a good
man.
Christmas, James.
Absolutely. Well, another evening is over and done for Born to Ride Radio. As always, keep it in between the ditches. Be safe. Take care. And as always, everyone, Born to Ride.
We love you, Joe.
Everywhere. Follow us at #BornToRideMotorcycle.